everybody. Welcome to Pharmaceutical Soccer. I am very happy for you to be here with us. I hope everybody has enjoyed their long weekend, if you did have one, with your days off, including Nashville SC for also taking the weekend off and not really showing up for a match. I hope they enjoyed it as well. I am here, of course, with Valer Shabilla and Clay Trainum. What's up, y'all? I feel like the energy for us is a little down right now. Are we tired from the long weekend? Kind of like what's happening here? Like I want some insights into you two right now.
I mean, I'm a little bit tired, but I had the smoker running for 18 hours. To have a good Labor Day brisket. So that was pretty good. And had a full day yesterday. So, played some board games, smoked a brisket. Didn't talk about Nashville hardly at all, which is rare on a Monday, but it was pretty good. Yeah, I'm a little tired, but I'll be all right.
Yeah, I had a pretty good weekend. Overall, had a mostly lounging Monday, which is I think what Labor Day is supposed to be, right? If I'm kind of understanding the day correctly.
For those who are curious, it is a concession made to organized labor in the United States after federal troops killed some people who were protesting, and it was an olive branch, if you will. That's a very Cliff Notes version of what the reason it exists, in honor of the working class.
I'll go ahead and protest again for like a couple more days a year, honestly. Who's with me? Am I right? As you can see, we did take this day off as well from Pharma Soccer, partially because, it's Labor Day. The other part is that I don't think any of us are excited to come talk about a 1-0 loss to Atlanta at home.
No, absolutely not.
But look, this is what this show is here for. So we're going to get with it, and we're going to go and talk about this match, unless Clay has one more thing.
I was just going to say, to be clear, and not a loss that was not totally unexpected on the basis of the existence of this show over the last several years. We're like, this is the type of game that Nashville, I don't know, maybe they've changed.
Does my weekend matter? Are we just skipping over the fact that nobody gives a crap about what I did over the weekend?
Well, you always do this thing where you're like, oh, why didn't you ask me? And then you say one thing that you're not even you're like, oh, my weekend doesn't matter. And then you move on. So I just moved on for
you. Valer and I heard about Valer and I heard about somebody in DC who hadn't been seen for like 5 days, and we just assumed it was you.
It's all over Twitter, man.
Do I look okay? Am I doing all right? Do I look all right? Anyways, no, I had a good weekend. Thank you very much for asking. Even though you didn't, I appreciated it. It was the start of college football weekend as well. So shout out my Michigan Wolverines for a lovely start to their football season, I guess. I also started rewatching the Hunger Games movies and figured I'd ask you guys a question. If there was one player on our Nashville SC squad that you feel like could win the Hunger Games, who would it be?
Easy answer for me.
I'm curious because I feel like it's easy too, but I'm curious who Valer's going to say.
Alex
Absolutely.
You
not a question.
I mean, come on. There's not even a question about it. What?
I mean,
that man can run for days.
Dude,
actual
you have a problem.
Days.
He's worldly.
I mean, do you have a different answer, Steven? Because I would like to hear an argument for somebody else, but I just don't know if they have one.
Clay, do you have one?
No, that's why I was like, it's easy. I don't know what Valer's going to take, but I guess it's going to be me. I mean, he's worldly. He's versatile. He feels like he's seen some things.
Stamina. He knows Timothée Chalamet. That's his sponsor. Yeah. When the little drone comes in and drops stuff in the Hunger Games. I've seen the movies. I know what's up.
The sponsor side of it, but the sponsor side of it thing just takes it even further.
I actually, yeah. No, no, I didn't even think about that. Now I'm a little convinced. I wasn't convinced, but I am now convinced. So, do you know who was not convincing though? Was Alex Mouille when he played for Nashville SC over the weekend. Well, not necessarily just
Poor
him,
guy
but
took a tumble.
Jeez.
Yeah, hoping he's okay. He was kind of holding his rib area, and that's always not a good sign. I feel
never a good
like
sign.
the good sign here is that Nashville has a little bit of a break, and that might give him a little bit of time to recoup. But yeah, I think he, he in his, you know, sort of usual Alex Muyl style was just going at 110. And I don't know if the defender, his name is escaping me at the moment, meant for it to go that bad for Atlanta United. I don't think if he did duck, which is not necessarily like the best move at that sort of collision. But I think the result of it was pretty unfortunate, and he tried to carry on, but eventually was subbed out in the first half.
Well, so with here we are after a loss to Atlanta at home. I don't I mean, we've had a couple of away losses this year, but I don't know if we've had one that's impacted. I don't know, has been as sad, probably, I would say, as losing to Atlanta at home. A not good Atlanta team, by the way. So, still in fourth place in the standings, though. Does this inconsistent kind of vibe with this team start to scare you a little bit when it comes down to the end of the season? Because normally we're talking about, hey, this team is finding form at the best times or not finding form at the worst times. But you feel like it's just up and down, and they're not able to find whatever the form they're in.
I don't know that I fully agree with the idea that it's fully up and down, because I think results wise it's not really. I think that they hit a bad patch, but before that bad patch they were unbelievable for like 3 months. Um Atlanta's a bad loss. It's probably the worst performance. It's the worst, in terms of like looking at the table and what you'd expect and playing at home, the worst result of the season. But I don't. I'm reluctant to put a ton of stock in it, other than to say these are results that do happen in MLS. We see it happen on the road, obviously with St. Louis. But I think like on the whole of the season, the team has been up for it, and I think it is worth noting that the team has been up for it in games that you're supposed to be up for it, and maybe not quite been there in games against lower table opponents at times. Maybe DC United going back several months, obviously St. Louis, Atlanta. Um, but I don't think I don't think that we would see that type of performance necessarily in a playoff situation at home. Um, and I do think that the Atlanta game, I mean, we're going to talk about it specifics later, but I do think the Atlanta game plays out a little bit different if the ball moves 2 inches, a couple times in that first half. Because I think that the chances were quality enough that Nashville should have gotten a win, even with the performance that they put in.
I don't have a problem with Nashville's performance against Atlanta, in all honesty. And I do think this team is showing inconsistency, though, just in terms of the actual definition of inconsistency. Since that the unbeaten streak ended, Nashville have lost 5 games and won 3. And they haven't drawn any in league play. That's the definition of an inconsistent team. There's been a loss, win, loss, situation going in and out. And while those results maybe don't always talk to the performance in itself, like this Atlanta match, for example, I do think the inconsistency in results is different than what we saw. Definitely different than what we saw in the first in that 14 game was it 14 17 game unbeaten streak, for example. That's definitely different. And then even the first portion of the season where Nashville were able to get a couple wins back to back here and there. So I do think there's a little bit of an inconsistency issue. I think there's probably a bigger conversation to be had about maybe just this team reaching its sort of its level and leveling up, not leveling up, sorry, leveling through to what this team was supposed to be to start with, because this team was not supposed to be a supporter shield contender. I think this team is kind of finding its level, which is maybe 5 to 8 in that Eastern Conference. And I think maybe that doesn't sit well with a lot of people after seeing them be really good. But that's really what I'm seeing out of these results and these performances as well.
I think I'm with you in some instances. I think the inconsistency comes with the way that these matches are going. So the first few losses, well, we're away, we're playing Western Coast opponents. Like, this is kind of why this is happening. That's fine. Just wait till we get home. Oh, we have a harder schedule coming up. Don't worry. Let's make sure that we set the standard with beating Atlanta at home before these bigger matches come up. We end up losing that match, something that was inconsistent for Nashville. I mean, with the amount of wins that they've had at home this season. So I don't necessarily think the performance is bad whatsoever from Nashville, and obviously we're going to talk about it in specifics. I don't think the results outside of that for Nashville are truly affect where Nashville is in the rank in the table either. They're still in fourth place in the league, tied up there with Charlotte at the current moment. So they could be in third, in a couple weeks after they play Cincinnati. They could be in second after they play Cincinnati. They're still kind of there.
Well, I do think it's important to say that Orlando has a game on Nashville. Inter Miami have 4 games on Nashville. Columbus Crew have a game on Nashville. New York City FC have 2 games on Nashville. And all those teams are within reach. So Nashville, just as well as they could be second, they could be eighth in the next 2 weeks. I'm not saying this as like, oh, I'm predicting that. I'm just saying that because it is that close. New York City with 2 games in hand could be at the level, if they win those 2 games, they could be level with Nashville in points, and that's the 8th best team in the East. So I'm just saying it's probably not going to end up like that because, as we've seen, all these Eastern teams have been just dropping points left and right. But that is a possibility when we're looking at the table.
That's the one thing that I think is just worth remembering. Like, you can't just think everyone's going to always win around you, because we've honestly seen Nashville's kind of stay in that supporter shield conversation extended more than any of us thought it would, for the sole reason that teams around Nashville started losing. That's what's going to happen in this part of the season. And honestly, a lot of Nashville's issues are tied somewhat into injuries that they've had in the side. And these are injuries that other teams are dealing with too, that lead to weird results this time of year all across MLS. And the one thing that I would say, just to sort of level things off, is we said that we weren't necessarily upset with that performance. The tone of this show is completely different if Hani puts away one of those chances and Sam Surge doesn't hit the crossbar. And that is how thin the margins can be, because those two things go differently. This is a 2-1 win, and probably more than that, probably comfortable for Nashville given the performance. And I know we're in the what if world, but I'm just saying, like, that's how thin the margins are. So worth remembering, they did beat Orlando 5-1 just a couple weeks ago. Probably shouldn't lose sight of that in these conversations as well.
Yeah, but when your offense is specifically around those two people to actually finish their chances, say they do miss those, unfortunately, which it does happen in this league,
and they
then,
convert a bunch that other guys don't convert either. I mean, we talked about that last week. Yeah, they didn't do anything to dissuade the idea that Nashville's a 2-player team coming out of this past weekend.
Yes, absolutely. Obviously, we're going to talk more about the match in specifics. Some new players that did come into the fold that we haven't seen in a while that also played in the match. And I guess, unfortunately, we have to talk about the League's Cup as well. As much as I don't want to, we're going to. And all of that is going to be next right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer. And we are back right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer at PharmaSoccer on our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Of course, make sure you do check out 615soccer.com. Spell it all out. Would love to have you a part of what we have going on over there, especially with it getting more towards end of season playoffs. There's going to be a lot of coverage, a lot of stuff happening, a lot of cool Huntsville stuff going on. So please make sure you do check out 615soccer.com. Also, pharmasoccer.com for your merchandise. Don't let this Atlanta match take away the luck from our stuff. It is still very lucky in my opinion. I think we just didn't have enough people wearing it.
Wasn't a good week for luck. I ran into a proud listener, Uncle Beezy, who was wearing the Pharma Boy shirt for the first time since the Chicago game, and it did not work out well this time. So, first time Nashville's lost with me wearing a Pharma Soccer shirt as well this past weekend.
Very unfortunate. I did not wear my Pharma Soccer shirt, so that was partially my fault and my problem.
Or maybe
so
more people need to buy them because they, the more people that buy them, it kind of restarts the counter, right? So, like, if you all just buy them and wear them, then we're not going to see Nashville lose the rest of the season. Just a theory.
We all need to work. We all need to work together and buy
Pharma
Soccer.
What are you doing for Nashville SC to win this week?
Look, BJ Callahan can only do so much. We also need your help specifically to help out in these situations. Look, Nashville losing 1-0 at home to Atlanta United. Goal from Atlanta United off a set piece in the 27th minute. The lineup started exactly the same lineup that they had against Orlando. Kind of expected that to be the case. You win a match 5-1, you kind of ride that going forward. And they played exactly like they knew what they were doing. It just, for some reason, it just didn't click in the final third.
Yeah, I just want to take a stab at that really quickly because I got a couple of messages after the match or replies, not messages, but kind of saying, oh, Nashville played horribly and terribly. And I saw all these sort of messages come through and I just wasn't sure where that came from. The result sucks. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat that. That was one of the worst results, if not the worst result of the regular season for Nashville SC. I'm not going to try to defend the result. The performance in itself, I mean, even if you just look at XG, for example, they generated 1.8 XG for that match. That's better than 6 league wins they've had this season. That's more XG than 6 league wins. Philadelphia away, Montreal at home, Red Bulls away. Red Bulls at home. All these games had less XG, and then even the Charlotte win had less XG. So I just want to, and XG is not the only metric. If you go look at the metric or just even look at the eye test. I mean, I don't know. I was watching that match before I even looked at any stat, and I was just like, Nashville played really well for the most part. They couldn't finish, which is terrible. If they were able to finish, I think that match ends easily 3-4-1 to Nashville. And I don't think that's like, I'm not saying that as in like it makes the loss any better. It doesn't. But Nashville did not play horribly or terribly. I don't think so.
I think where it comes from is that Nashville did seem like it came out flat. And I think that the way that game started, I mean, I know that Nashville's going to find some chances early on, but that was what I heard people talking about at halftime. And then that was capped by a relatively early goal from Atlanta. But the end of the half, if Nashville was kind of on it at the end of the half, the way they like, if they saw that earlier in the game, I think people would have had a different feeling on the way it happened. But it was sort of like, this is Atlanta. It's a big game. Nashville should beat these guys by, name the score. And didn't quite have that same sort of energy. Then Atlanta scores, and then Nashville's playing catch up, and then the chances just mounting with nothing happening. So I think it's the frustration that made people feel that the performance was bad more than necessarily the performance on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about these moments a lot. But, well, I mean, we've been in Atlanta's shoes where we've been playing Gary Smith ball and just letting chances fly at us while we're up 1-0 and still winning the match. Like, I don't think Nashville's plan ever changed. I think it was just a few unfortunate moments when it came to finishing. Again, I think Clay is right that he said in the first segment, if Sam doesn't hit the crossbar, which I think we do need to talk about a little bit when it comes to the way that he, even though he is leading the Golden Boot race, is a little inconsistent at times. Hani Mukhtar places a couple of the balls that he had in different
I think
positions.
even if Sam's
I
goal would
think
have counted, the one that was chalked off, if that would have counted, I think the game finishes different. I just don't think that once Nashville couldn't get the lid off the goal, the goals weren't going to come.
and sometimes that unfortunately is the way the cookie crumbles. Like, I don't think BJ went into that. I don't think he went into the locker room saying players specifically played bad, because I don't think that's the case. I think we saw a continuation kind of what it was against Orlando. I just think Orlando's defense was way worse than Atlanta's in a lot of different ways. We also do need to give a shout out, I think, to their 21-year-old goalkeeper. I forgot his name specifically, who had a phenomenal match as well, stepping in for Brad Guzan. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Jaden Hibbert, who actually he's interesting because he wanted to play for Jamaica. He's of Jamaican descent, I believe, but maybe born in Canada. So he might actually end up playing for Canada instead of Jamaica. But yeah, he replaced Guzan last game as well and did all right from what I understand. And then Ryan Dylo, the head coach, was like singing his praises in the post game press conference, which honestly, why wouldn't you? He did, even that one that hit the post, that hit the bar from Sam. He got a touch on that as well. So like he is, I think he had a massive game, had multiple saves, and deserves the credit for it. I do think the to play devil's advocate a little bit for what the statement I said earlier, the 1.8 xg for a team as bad as Atlanta and attack as good as Nashville, you would hope that's a little bit higher. But
Especially chasing
realistically
a game.
speaking, realistically speaking, though, the amount of chances that Nashville created have been more than enough for Nashville to at least get a result from a game. And that's really what it comes down to. That's why I always put it up finishing. Yes, they could have created more chances. This could have been the Chicago or the Orlando game where chances were flying and Nashville were able to run up the score. Obviously, that's better, but I'm just saying for the amount of chances created, Nashville historically under BJ Callahan have been able to at least get a result from a game like that.
I mean, I think we should talk about some positives as well. I think that midfield between Brugman and Yazbek has been really working. I think that's one of the things, Valera, you were talking about when it came to Gaston Brugman and his play, when he kind of had the ability to start a couple matches. I do think it's going to be interesting the way in a couple weeks off of a fresh start, does Eddie get the start in that midfield position over Brugman. But the way that it's working right now, seems like a little bit more offensive push with both of those guys in the midfield.
Yeah, I think there's a better balance between those two than what we've seen, and then I just think Brugman can do things that the other players, not even midfielders in the team, can't. He has an ability to play a ball in behind and over the defenders that is second to none on the team, and that is very very important and valuable for BJ Callahan, especially when chasing a game against a quote unquote inferior team. So I see no problem in choosing him again because against Orlando, I thought he had his best game in a Nashville shirt. Against Atlanta, he was far from the problem and should have been a solution if if the players can finish in front of him because I thought he was unlucky to get out of that match without an assist. He had multiple assists or like a secondary assist or whatever you want to call it. I just thought he had multiple situations where he was able to kind of showcase his skill and his talent. Not only that, I thought he was really good tracking back and defending. And that is something that maybe kind of came with that game time, like you were saying, Steven, because I don't think that's something he was doing early in the season. And I think that's one of the reasons it got him out of the team often was that you see Eddie Taxath and Patrick Hasback eat up the entire field. And when he wasn't even doing his little part, it was hard to justify for Callahan to put him in. Now seeing him defend with the same sort of, I'm not going to say the same skill or cover ground with the same intensity or similar intensity to Patrick Hasback and Eddie Taxath, I think it really puts him in a conversation of there are three players for two spots. And I really don't think there's a huge drop off currently based on form between those three. Will we see Eddie Taxat start a game again before the end of the season? Absolutely. Especially with Gaston Bergman's age and where he is. I don't think this is like a foregone conclusion. But that's what you want. You want teams to go against you being like, well, is he going to go with Eddie or is he going to go with Gaston? Because both of those players give you two different things, and it really confuses the opposition. It's kind of similar conversation to the wingers. Just sadly for the wingers, it's generally people not in good form forcing that discussion, to where for the center mids, it seems like people in good form are forcing that discussion.
I think it's worth remembering that players often have an adjustment period when they enter MLS. And, you know, for as good as Eddie Tagseth was for huge chunks of the season, it was always destined that, you know, he'd hit a rough patch at some point. It's just a different league. And the two guys that are playing, obviously Brugman has been around the league for a bit, but Yazbek has just a little bit more seasoning on him in terms of like playing in the league. And I do think, you know, people have found out that you can wind up Eddie Tagseth a little bit, and teams have taken advantage of that a little bit. And Eddie's been, you know, game planned for, and he'll be fine. Like he'll be fine, but it's also worth noting that he costs a lot less than those two guys do in terms of like a contract. So there's a reason for that, you know, and that's not a mark against him. I think we would all say that Eddie Tagseth is on a pretty great deal for the team at the moment, but there's a reason that these guys are paid what they're paid. And that's also something to keep in mind. That's a great thing for Nashville, but you know, that is something that you need to remember when you're looking at certain players in certain positions.
I do think there needs to be more statistics done based on how players perform before and after dramatic haircuts, because Eddie did get his haircut that was noticeable. You could tell he was finally falling a little bit out of form, so decided to get a haircut.
Were you guys worried about Walker?
It was the right time for,
or when he cut his hair?
I mean, I think Walker just needed the haircut after the reset from, I don't know, getting injured per se. But yeah, I don't know. I just always find it funny where I'm like, I mean, Alex Mouille had long hair until he decided to completely shave his head too. And now he's been Valaire's favorite player for the past 3 years.
Listeners,
I never said that.
Pharma listeners, let us know what you think about Steven Sampson theorem.
I don't know. What else do you guys want to talk about with this match? There's one thing I do want to talk about at some point. And I think, like, I want to talk about Tyler Boyd at some point. But is there anything else you guys want to bring up before we
joked about Schaffelberg being due for a setback game, basically on last episode, and unfortunately, that's been the story of wingers this year. I don't necessarily think it was some like crazy, unbelievably terrible game or anything, but it clearly wasn't the same level of the previous games. And one particular decision in the first half stands out, and I know that Valaire is going to have a go at me for focusing on the life of a winger there on like one bad decision, but it is it's just, I mean, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy at this point. The second that a winger can have 3 or 4 good games offensively will be the first time that's happened this year for Nashville.
Well, do we think it's pressure based by any chance? Just the way that this team is set up, because we've established that Alex Mouille is always going to be there, kind of in that lineup. It's a scrappy utility guy. Hani and Sam are always going to be the ones specifically that are the ones kind of contributing goal wise up front. So that puts a lot of pressure on that right wing to kind of be that guy that steps up, or one of the midfielders specifically. Is it a pressure thing? Is it the way that Nashville plays, or that right wing is just always going to be under fire? What is the deal there?
I mean, I think it has to do more with the players themselves rather than a pressure, because actually there's been more rotation in those winger spots than anywhere else on the field, meaning that they are getting more chances than anyone else in any other position. Look, we saw Matt Corcoran get loaned out because there weren't even minutes for him in midfield. So if you're a winger and you're looking at that and you are getting first team minutes, regardless of your age, but I mean, Johnny Perez, Ahmed Qasim, and even Jacob Schaffelberg to an extent are all on the younger side, especially Johnny Perez and Ahmed Qasim. and you're getting first team minutes in MLS. You're getting starts. This is for somebody to go and take. And I think Johnny Perez looks the most. I don't know. I hesitate to use that word, but he looks the most exciting out of them. He looks like the most to affect a game. But that doesn't mean that he needs to start every game because, I mean, look at what he did against Atlanta off the bench. And maybe that's something BJ Callahan wants to keep in his back pocket in case the game doesn't go well. Ahmed Qasim had a really good start and just kind of fell off after that. I think, there's that adaptation period Clay was talking about. I think he's hitting that pretty hard as well. And then Jacob Schaffelberg is a little bit of a surprising one just because I think at this point he's looked at as a veteran of the team. He's somebody who is, the starting position was pretty much in his name coming into the season, regardless of what the other players were doing. And just seemed like since international duty, he hasn't really been himself. He finds two good games. He gets back into the scoring sheet, all that. But even against the Orlando game, even in the Orlando game, I know he ended up Clay. I think that clip Joel ended up posting it on social media. Clay, you were saying it like, yeah, he had 2 assists, but he was so frustrating the first 40 minutes, and that's really kind of indicative of his performance. Of that, even when he does eventually figure it out, it doesn't always start
Well,
out
and
that
he
way.
agreed. He
And
agreed with that. And when you were talking to him at the
yeah,
press conference, where he was like, "I have to do better with my decision making." Like he's keenly aware of like he hasn't really fully grabbed hold of it.
yeah, and I just look at those three wingers, and I feel like all three of them have missed an opportunity. Really, I don't think there's that much pressure. I mean, I don't think there's any more pressure on them than anybody else. Let's just put it that way to answer your question, Stephen. But I just really think they've missed out on an opportunity to solidify themselves as a starter because that position till today, with what 5 regular season games left, it's still up for grabs to this day. And the fact that all these games went through and none of them has been like the guy, I think that's more so they're going to look at as something to, maybe even Nashville SC is looking at, well, do we need to improve there? Right. And I don't blame them for that because that's really the truth of it. And look, Tyler Boyd is coming into the mix now. That's a new variant, right? That's not something that
Fourth person there, yeah.
yeah, so I mean that could be what needs to shake it up, but I don't think it's a pressure thing. I think it's the younger wingers maybe just trying to find their own sort of path into the lineup. One thing I did find weird in the game, and I know we're talking about BJ Callahan here in a little bit. Once Alex Muyl was subbed out and Johnny Perez came in, I was really surprised that BJ Callahan stuck with Jacob Schaffelberg on the right and Johnny on the left. And I really thought we would have seen the inverse of that at some point, even if not right away, or even in certain situations. But I don't think we even saw it at all. And I just thought that's a little surprising because Schaffelberg has been like publicly saying he's more preferred on the left. Like he's more natural on the left, I think, for him, especially with how much he's depending on his left foot. And for Perez, I think we've seen his best moments in Nashville on the right. So I just didn't know why that change didn't happen.
And I can think of like multiple, like when Schaffelberg first came to Nashville, I can think of multiple goals that he scored like from the left side. Like that seems like
Yeah.
when he first sort of broke out with Nashville, it was playing on the left side, not the right side. And so it is interesting. I do think we also need to mention that Dan Levitz came back in addition to Tyler Boyd. I think both of those are pretty big lifts for Nashville. Like we'll see what Boyd can offer. Obviously, he's a high value player that we just haven't seen a whole lot of playing in Nashville. But on the basis of his career, you have to think that is somebody who can be a game changer. And I think that Nashville has sorely, sorely, sorely missed Dan Levitz on the field. We've talked a little bit.
But he had a really.
What was that, Steven?
I was going to say he had a really big tackle literally within 2 minutes of being on the field.
Well, and defensively is one thing, but also like offensively, like it just helps Nashville be so much more balanced going forward. A Dan Levitz out there, it opens up the game in a different way than
I don't think that anybody who's suited up at left back has done a particularly poor job, but it's going from a replacement level left back to someone who is significantly better than that.
And I do want to talk about Tyler Boyd, Steven. I know you mentioned it earlier, but like I think for him to come back is obviously a huge statement, and we got to speak to him after the match. Go to the 615 Soccer YouTube channel and look up that press conference because I think he comes off. I think you start to understand the mentality of a pro player. And I don't know, like I'm not a big like mentality, like intangibles guy, but the way he spoke in that press conference, I think really showcases what he was thinking about during that entire sort of recovery period, and I think he really wants to prove something to to the people, to the fans watching, to the coaching staff and everybody. And I do want to give a huge shout out to the Nashville fans because they welcomed him really nicely at Geodis Park. And I thought that was a really nice moment, like when his name was announced, and there was a huge applause to him. To to be fair, Dan Lovett's got a louder one, but still, I think hearing your name said and then hearing that sort of reaction is only going to motivate Boyd to kind of come back as strong as possible.
He looked good too. Like even for like the little bits and flashes, like you kind of saw that he has a lot of technical ability on the ball, like stuff that you forgot about a lot of the time.
But
Well,
yeah.
but you saw the ability there.
It's like a new signing.
I mean, is there any? Let's wrap this up. Do you think? I think we need to talk about BJ specifically when it comes to just kind of the consistency of this team. And just I know we even talked about Jacob Schaffelberg, being on the right instead of the left. Do you think that there's anything he could have done to drive this match forward?
Honestly, I don't think so. I really think that based on how the team performed last match, based on how these partnerships are building, whether it's Zimmerman and Palacios and the midfield partnership, based on the injuries currently, I think for this match, I have no problems with what BJ did. Like I said, maybe changing the wingers. I don't know how much that would have worked, or if that's even part of the plan. But I don't have much that I can say there. I do find it a little weird that he put in Tyler Boyd in this match, high intensity, chasing a goal, but felt uncomfortable putting him in against Orlando and Nashville were like 4-0 up. I don't know. I just thought that's like a weird one. But look, a week in these injuries could be, he could have not been hitting those numbers until this week. Who knows? But I just thought that was an interesting quirk that I noticed.
I mean, for me,
Awesome.
like if Nashville goes into games tossing up an XG of around 2, with the way that they can play defensively, they should win more games than they lose, and they should win probably significantly more games than they lose. Uh, I am, I mean, I'm a broken record on this. I'm reluctant to read too far into individual games here and there, and I think Atlanta was an okay performance and a bad result. I don't find that to be particularly worrisome or need a lot of changes. I think the only change that, and I think BJ would probably agree with this, is just to have somebody really grab hold of that right wing spot and really make things a little bit more clear. I mean, it's great to have competition going into the playoffs. It's great to have competition, at all positions all year round. But I think not really knowing what the team's best 11 is going into do or die types of games is something that I'm sure is a little bit worrisome this late in the season. And I think you can kind of get a sense for the way the team would line up the 11 or 12 players that would be involved at all the other positions, and to really not have an idea on who's going to be there this late in the season is something that is probably worrisome to the coaching staff.
Well, BJ does have 2 weeks to think about it as we have a nice little extended international break. So we got a few things to talk about in terms of that break, including, of course, we got a Space Cowboy match coming up, as well as some fun controversy during the League's Cup. We're going to talk about that next, right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer. And we are back. Last segment of the show here on Pharmaceutical Soccer at PharmaSoccer on our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Of course, 615soccer.com. Check that out. Also, make sure you check out pharmasoccer.com for all of your fun, lovely pharmaceutical soccer merch. Check all that stuff out. Thank you so much for listening to the show. As always, let's wrap the show up by talking about a few different things. First, I think we need to talk about the League's Cup. I still was sticking strong with my boycott, specifically of not giving them airtime and not watching the match. But there was a decent amount of controversy that did come out afterwards when it comes to Miami players throwing punches and spitting on people. I don't know. What do you think about all this stuff so far?
Go ahead, Clay.
Before we talk about that, I just want to take a moment to recognize the fact that what Seattle did was extraordinary. They got almost 70,000 people for the League's Cup final. They have, completed the set as far as trophies that you can win as a soccer team in the United States. They've won them all now, and I think that they have been the best run team in the league basically ever since they entered the league. And it's a little annoying, but I do think, like, while we're about to talk about a team that maybe hasn't been run particularly well and has some controversial things around them, it would be very unfortunate to Seattle for something that is so impressive and that is deserving of praise. And I mean, just can't say enough words. I mean, they've had mostly the same, coach for a lot of it. They had the same general manager for a good chunk of it. Like, it's just really, really impressive, and they deserve all the plaudits in the world for what they've done. They're so deep and so many different players involved in all of those different trophies.
Well, Clay took most of my words. I was going to say I'm not going to give airtime to Miami in the show that I helped produce because I don't care about that situation. So
Why don't you guys feed into the drama at all? Why
because
not?
I don't care. I don't care. If you want to go hear about somebody do hot takes about Miami, go in there, and there's like 12,000 shows a day doing that. I'm going to talk about Seattle a little bit because I do think not only what they did was extraordinary, I do think also their second team and the ability of being able to produce from Tacoma Defiance and having those guys not only come into the first team to be, just come in and play a final and score. Like that's a very big deal and very big testament to what they have going on there. A lot of that squad, whether it was bench or starters, have either come through the academy or come through the second team. And if there was ever a model organization for MLS, this is it. If there was ever a dynasty in MLS, currently, this is it. I hesitate to use that word just because I don't think it's dynasty in the same way that other North American sports are, your Golden States or your Patriots or whatever. I don't think it's that sort of dynasty, but also there are more trophies in play in soccer, and Seattle have been able to achieve all of those trophies. So I think just in terms of that itself, I do think they are a dynasty in terms of how well the club is. And it does help that they are in the West and Nashville doesn't face them enough or doesn't face them a lot because I think that kind of puts them in a different area. And maybe even Nashville fans can be a little more fair in their assessment of Seattle. A little more to where the Eastern Conference teams you see every week maybe change your mind a little bit.
So the other thing that I think, and might be just one more thing on what Blair said there about developmental, what they've also done well, in addition to having the developmental team, bringing kids to the academy, is they've done well with their kids to the academy who have also gone to college, because you can turn around and sign those folks back to your senior team. And it's not as big a component as it was in the past, but there's some pretty big ones that Seattle's had over this run of success. DeAndre Edlin, Jordan Morris, like big players in MLS that went through that way as well. So they've just done well top to bottom. And as far as Miami, I'm shocked that Luis Suarez, a guy who's bitten people 3 different times, would have the audacity to spit on someone too.
Clay, while speaking about college, did you have something about college?
Oh yeah, so
No. No,
So
absolutely
anyway,
not. You guys had to talk about. You guys just talked about Seattle Sounders.
College soccer season has gotten going and in pretty good fashion, and we talk about the amateur leagues that happen throughout the summer. A lot of those players have now returned to their actual college teams. There are several of which here in Nashville, and so sometimes we profile them more than other times. And this will be a quick time, just time to let you know kind of what's going on. They're a few weeks into the season. Of course, I'm down here at MTSU. MTSU is 4-1-1 on the season. Vandy, the Nashville teams, Vandy, Lipscomb, and Belmont on the women's side. These are all women's games. Are all off to a pretty good start. Vandy is 4-1. They're usually the class of the city in terms of the women's college game. Lipscomb is 2-2-1, and Belmont is 2-2-1. There are also a couple of local men's teams to keep an eye out. Belmont is 3-0. They haven't always been a spectacular men's program in the past, so support them while you can. And Lipscomb has been a spectacular men's team in the past. They are 1-1-1 on the season. They usually play a pretty competitive schedule, so keep an eye out on them. Please go support these college teams. These are people that could end up playing for Nashville. Sometimes on the men's side, these players will have trained with Nashville, and they're actually playing on the college team. So just keep an eye out for those. Support soccer at all levels, not just the professional and semi-professional levels.
We also have the Space Cowboy match coming up here this week.
Yeah, I'll be there. So it's gonna be the day this episode is released. So I don't know how much folks will be able to make last minute decisions. If you're listening to this on Wednesday morning, go to Huntsville on Wednesday night and watch Nashville SC take on Huntsville in a friendly where you'll see a lot of guys that you wouldn't otherwise see. It's a beautiful stadium. I've been to the stadium. I haven't been to a game at the stadium, so I'm excited to see it. We just got off a call with Mike Jacobs and Chris O'Neill, the head coach of Huntsville City FC. They are very excited for this match as well. It's one of those things where it shows you how big soccer is, I think, or how big soccer is becoming, at least in these areas. Huntsville regularly have thousands of people watching their matches, which is not common at all for MLS Next Pro. So it's really cool to see that. And then on the pitch, you might see an academy product, or you might see a Huntsville player who will become an important player for Nashville SC. We were just talking about Seattle and how their ability to turn players. If Nashville SC can turn half of that product that Seattle have into the first team, then that would make them a really, really good second team and academy. So yeah, really exciting. Aside from the marketing stuff, even on the pitch stuff is pretty cool opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, there's some pretty. Alabama is a very much an emerging soccer market, not just for fans, but of course for players. Chris Richards, famously out of Alabama, family down here in Murfreesboro, I believe, and then you've got that Huntsville stadium is surrounded by a massive soccer complex as well. So the game has always existed in Huntsville in some way. Alabama A&M was a historically great men's college soccer program before it got shuttered, and there's some reasons to be excited about Nashville having a foothold in that part of the country, developmentally and in terms of building a fan base. So it's a cool match. They should play it every year. I'm happy they did. I'm happy they have so far. Hope long may it continue.
Well, since the fact that we don't have a match coming up and a professional match until next Saturday against Cincinnati, let's give predictions. Let's wrap it up and give predictions to the Space Cowboy match, I guess. Match will be coming out. Make sure you listen to the show on the way, but I think you should do it. Clay, I think you should do it. I think you should give a prediction. So why don't you wrap it up, plugs, and let's close it out.
Steven said my name, so I thought he wanted me to go, but go ahead, Blair. Have at it.
I was going to say, go to 615soccer.com, type it out, and sign up to become a paid member if you haven't already, because that helps us keep this show running. That helps us keep the website running and all the written content and everything else. Also, go to Pharma Soccer and buy some merch because that helps us out as well. So support local soccer and local coverage of local soccer. That's my message for today. And I think it's going to be a 2-1 win for Nashville SC with Johnny Perez and Ahmed Qasim to score. And then for the Huntsville side, Christian Coffey has been scoring goals. Let me just make it easy on myself. Christian Coffey scores for Huntsville. There you go.
You can check me out at Clay La Soul on Instagram and Twitter. You can also check out Pharma Soccer at all the places previously listed. You can check out Kicking It 615. I mean, they have an advocate on there who didn't say anything about it, but please check out Kicking It 615 and support local soccer at the grassroots level. In addition to local soccer media, please check out Nashville Soccer Archive. If you have anything you'd like to donate to the archive, please let me know. And as far as predictions go, I predict that Valère will eat a hot dog.
You cut out, actually. What did you
said,
say?
as far as predictions go, I predict that Valère will eat a hot dog.
We'll see. I'll let you know.
At PH Stephen HD on all of my stuff, Huntsville wins 4-0. Because I'm just sticking with that train. It sounds like a fun thing to do. Who knows?
Name 4 Huntsville players.
Cool. Thank you so much for listening to the show. Really appreciate it. You guys are awesome.
No. You made us play trivia. Name 4 Huntsville players, Steven.
Nope. Bye.
All right. Thanks, everybody.